So today, sales is stuck in the dark ages, but we believe it is on the brink of a productivity revolution that will change how reps sell and result in greater happiness for sellers. So with that, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Phil, Nancy, and me today as we have a conversation about our recently published research on the future of sales. Please feel free to ask questions throughout, and we will be monitoring the chat to try and catch the questions that you send our way. As I mentioned, we've been doing research on what the future has in store for B2B sales, and what we believe will drive success in the future of sales. And what we believe will drive success are the 5 Ps. We've identified 5 Ps, which are purpose-driven, precise, personalized, productive, and profitable. And we believe that these aspects of sales will drive success in the future. And before we get started with the questions that I have prepared for Phil and Nancy, we want to take a brief moment to introduce ourselves. I'm Matt Flug. I'm a researcher at Forrester. I've been here for about 4 years, and I support Phil and Nancy as well as the other sales services teams at Forrester. Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Maluso. I'm a vice president and principal analyst here at Forrester, and 5 years ago, before I came here, I was in a variety of B2B technology roles, all customer facing. So whether I was in customer support or sales leader, sales enablement, portfolio marketing, all of the roles that I held were focused on interacting or enabling us to interact with customers in really effective ways. And since I've joined Forrester, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of clients and helping them to build and really perfect their revenue engine. Excited to share with you today about the future of sales.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Harrell, VP and Group Director. I lead the sales research group here at Forrester. I've been here for 5 years. Prior to coming here, though, I started my career in sales, carrying a bag, selling high tech for a bunch of companies in the Boston area, Pegasystems, Akamai Technologies, HubSpot. So I came up through the sales function. I love the profession, terrific profession. Hopefully more people get into it. And now that I get a chance to work with Nancy and my team members to help clients with their biggest sales challenges, really exciting to do the research and to learn and to help our clients with what's going to happen in sales. So excited as well to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Phil. And with that, we'll dive right into the questions I've got. So my first question is for Nancy, and that is, in the future of sales, what will it mean to be purpose-driven?
So it means a number of things, but fundamentally, purpose-driven means to be about more than just profit. And so we see as millennials, 43% of millennials now are involved in vendor evaluation and decisions. And as we see millennials and Gen Zers further enter the decision-making level of the workforce, we're going to see that their values and their preferences are going to really start to push forward. We already see that in some cases. The desire for improvement in the environment and the care that we have to take with the environment. We're surrounded right now by some really, weather impacting sort of issues with fires and other sorts of climate things. So environmental issues have been at the forefront of our thinking, and they're showing up in B2B purchasing, with companies caring about how environmentally friendly and environmentally advanced our companies. So that's one example of this purpose is greater than profit. There's other kinds of purposes that we have. For example, we may be about helping the communities we're in. And it may be about diversity and inclusion within our population. And it's not just going to be in order to relate all this to buyers as part of our sales process and to share with them how we are as a company. But it's really about our employees too, and what's going to motivate them as they come to work, and how we're going to make them feel better about what they do every single day. And they care about feeling better about what they do every single day. So that's what purpose-driven is about. And we see an increase in buyers caring about that and an increase in employees. Of course, it depends on the markets you're in, how fast that's becoming really critical, but it's definitely something we see.
Definitely. As a millennial employee, I can say that I definitely am proud to work for a company that I feel does good work in the community. So what potential challenges, Nancy, do you see companies running into as they strive to become purpose-driven in the future?
I think the biggest challenge is authenticity, right? If we start thinking about purpose-driven just to help buyers go like check the box that, we meet their requirements, it's not going to be authentic. And then that's just not good, right? That's not what we mean. To truly be purpose-driven, we truly have to have purpose beyond profit. And we have to care about something beyond that. It's important for us as leaders in sales to help our peers develop what we believe in our company and what our purpose is beyond profit, and to then really inculcate it into our brand and in the way that we are. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, is to, as a company, as a brand, as a culture within that business, to have that authentic care about purpose.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. And Phil, you have anything you want to add for being purpose-driven?
Yeah, I think what it means for sales leaders out there is we're going to have to be very comfortable talking about things that maybe 10 years ago we didn't need to talk about, and arming our sales reps with the data, for example, to demonstrate that we do take diversity and inclusion seriously, and that we arm them with the data to be able to explain to buyers, this is the diversity that we have in our sales team currently. Here are the efforts underway to make sure we have a very inclusive environment. And I think that's just a very big change for sales leaders who are used to motivating in other ways. So without the ability to enable both to be able to talk about and articulate why what you're doing matters to the world, why the mission of what your company is doing and why it's important to the world, if you don't have that as a sales leader and you can't articulate that and motivate your team through that, you're going to have trouble both attracting the best and brightest salespeople to your teams, which there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, I don't know if you guys caught it, talking about 700,000 jobs that are now open, and organizations are having trouble finding young people to go into sales because of that outdated view of sales. So we're going to have to be much better about talking about these issues to motivate people to want to come to the organization, and then obviously to make buyers want to do business with us, as Nancy very articulated very well, in terms of their ability to say, this is why we stand for this. This is why we're the right company to do business with. So a lot of interesting things happening on the purpose-driven front.
Great. Thank you, Phil. And that'll bring us to the next P. So we know that CEOs and investors alike, they're both prioritizing predictable, repeatable, and scalable revenue sources. And because of this, sales leaders will need to be more precise, and that's our next P, with their efforts. And so in the future, how will sellers become more efficient in their efforts? And that one's we'll start with Phil.
Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity here. You think about how much time sales spends wasting time trying to figure out and deduce, is this person really in market for what I have to offer? Do they really have a problem that they want to solve right away? And you think about the role of technology and data that can play to make organizations a lot more precise than they are today. It is enormous. There are all kinds of applications. Think about segmentation in terms of how to better segment your prospect base or customer base, more finely segment. Think about how to do territory analysis to make sure that reps have equal opportunity in those territories based on being able to more finely sense who's really in market, how big that service addressable market is for that territory. Think about compensation and how much more precise compensation setting, quota setting is going to get in the future. There are massive opportunities. Think about how to help reps understand within their territories, here are the ideal client profile companies that you should be going after, because we've gotten signals that they're actually in market. So you think about the time that's wasted today of sales trying to figure out, is this company ready? Do they really have a problem I can solve? We think data and technology will play an enormous role in helping free up reps to get rid of some of that mundane activity, some of the repetitive stuff, some of the stuff that's low value add, and really get them to focus with clients who are truly in market, that truly have a need, that really want to solve a problem. And then it comes down to a sales rep's ability and their cognitive ability and their ability to build trust to be able to establish a relationship and say, we're the right company to do business with. I'm the right person because I'm a problem solver. I understand your issues. We can help you solve them and get the outcome that you're looking for. So the precision, there's all kinds of applications to make sales a lot more precise than it is today, which I think is tremendously exciting.
Yeah, we also are starting to see evidence of companies that are taking insights they get from the digital interactions that buyers are having with them and in the marketplace in general. And we know that the number of interactions buyers have has gone up tremendously since the pandemic started. A lot of those are digital. We're over 50% of our buying interactions are digital. So there's a tremendous amount of information we can learn from those digital interactions. And so AI is now taking that and being able to assess what those interactions are, and then suggest to sellers not only which are the precise opportunities to focus on and prioritize, but also what are the best activities that they should be doing. We tend to kind of just do the same thing. Okay, this is the first time I'm talking to them. I'm going to talk about qualification. Well, if you already know that they're qualified and that they're interested, do you need to revisit that? Use the insight you have and make that that activity more about sharing the information they need. So being really precise about what we know and leveraging it to do the right thing in the moment is going to be really valuable.
Yeah, well, I think we lost Matt. Matt, you there?
I'm back. Okay. Sorry about that. I got kicked off. It may have been me pressing the wrong button, but I'm back. Okay. And I got a question ready to go. It seems like technology and insights are going to be a huge part of being more precise for sellers. Nancy and Phil, are you seeing a shift in your clients that they're beginning to implement tools to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to leverage those insights and be more precise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing it. There's no question there are great opportunities. Now, I think we have to understand that technology is not the panacea. We don't believe that the only thing you need is technology. There are lots of technology solutions out there, but we think underlying it is process. You have to start with process, make sure you have that in place, and then you put technology or infrastructure in place to automate or accelerate those processes. But yes, we believe artificial intelligence has an opportunity to play a big role with making sales more precise and personalized, frankly, which is another P we can talk about. But we see that increasing in the future. And what's so exciting is really offloading a lot of those mundane, repetitive tasks. For so long, sales has been a lot of people have been doing a lot of data entry and low value added tasks. And we think artificial intelligence is already removing some of that highly repetitive tasks off of their plate, so sales can focus more on their cognitive ability. So yes, it's happening now, and it's going to be even bigger in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, there's three key areas that we see the early adoption of the technology as it relates to AI happening. One is with knowing what assets are working. So asset management systems that are able to look at asset utilization and its correlation between the use of assets and conversion during the sales process. We see it in understanding which activities are working, and understanding what engagement sellers are having by capturing those seller activities and the engagement they have with buyers. How long does it take a buyer? Does the buyer read the email? How long does it take them to respond? Do they respond? What are they responding to? What is the quality of the conversation? There's all kinds of information there. And of course, then there's AI that's been brought in a lot to help with forecast accuracy. And those tools are starting to move downstream to not just look at, do we think this is, an opportunity that's going to close, but now to say, what is the next probable deal to work on? What is the best priority? So it's coming at sales from all sorts of directions. And I think in addition to being really focused, as Phil said, on process, we've got to make sure that we are thinking of our technology in a holistic way, that we're integrating it, that we're able to share data, that we don't forget about our marketing counterparts, because the data that they capture is really critical. We've got to be able to share all that. So we have to be thoughtful about our introduction and use of technology, but we see it really changing things. Yeah.
Awesome. And just one more thing on this. I think that throughout our research, it came up that being more precise can help not only with buyers and in terms of selling, but also in terms of evaluating and onboarding talent. So how do you see the proliferation of artificial intelligence and machine learning and just overall efforts towards being more precise helping in that area?
We're starting to see some technologies coming into play that really can start to assess competency. What are the skills somebody has? What is knowledge? How fluent are they in a conversation about a particular topic? And through that, understand which competencies are most critical during the customer engagement process. And then being able to use that to form, okay, these are the skills or competencies and knowledge we need to look for, which not only drives improvement in how we hire, but it also drives improvement in, the way we onboard and can customize and personalize that. An interesting thing that it also does is it allows us to go beyond going back to purpose-driven to look for a more diverse workforce. We know that 72% of B2B sellers are hired through referral, and yet, especially in the tech space, diversity is just is not very strong. And so, by using competency-based models, we can really start opening our aperture in terms of the talent we look for and the talent we successfully hire. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. And we'll before we go on to our next P, I just want to just quick reminder, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the comments section of the chat. We'll be checking that and trying to get to all of those as much as possible. So on to our next P. Also, throughout our research, we've learned that the days of successful cold calling / emailing are long gone. I know that I absolutely hate it when I get an email from someone selling me something. I'm like, you don't even know what I do, because I cannot make the buying decisions for my company. And millennial and Gen Z buyers are used to personalized B2C experiences. And as sellers prepare for the future, what will successful personalization look like in the B2B world?
Well, I think it's that data exhaust that's being created, as we mentioned earlier. The good companies and the companies that will win are the ones that will be able to leverage and harness all that data that's being created. Your buyers in the future increasingly are leaving digital footprints throughout their navigation early in their buying cycle to investigate solutions on their own. They're very comfortable doing that. Certainly millennials and Gen Zers are digital first generation. And they're going to do a lot of research, and they're leaving those digital footprints. And those organizations that can capture those digital footprints and use that effectively to personalize the interactions that they have with those buyers early in the cycle are going to have a huge competitive advantage in making a fundamentally better buying experience or better customer experience than any other organizations. Now, that means the handoff, for example, from marketing to sales. The first time a salesperson speaks to a prospect, when they've already done a lot of research on the web, that context really should be given to the rep. So the rep can have a warm conversation, or at least even better than a hot conversation with someone, because they've seen what web pages they've gone to, what assets they've read, what content they've downloaded. And that's an example of the kind of personalization that's required. And is really it's table stakes in the future that you have to be able to do as an organization. They don't want to, a buyer doesn't want to show up after doing a lot of research and have a canned demo from a rep, for example, that doesn't know anything about them prior to them getting to that rep. So I think what it's doing with all this digitization and the digital exhaust and technology is it's raising the bar for organizations to be able to customize the experience and to help that buyer along their journey. So at the end, that buyer says, that was an amazing experience. The rep anticipated my needs. Every time that I felt like I needed information, they sent me information that was appropriate to where I was in that buying cycle. It was never felt pressure to close. That was a natural part of the evolution. And everything I benefited from in terms of the outcome of the solution I purchased was exactly what the rep told me. That's very hard to do, that orchestration across marketing, product, sales, customer success, but it's table stakes in the future.
Yeah, so the journey is going to also be personalized, not just the type of interaction and what we say and what we interact with our client on. That personalization absolutely has to happen. It needs to feel personal. It needs to feel authentic too. Authentic, in the sense that not only does the buyer feel and understand the seller feel and understand what the buyer wants, but then can deliver that to them. And so personalized journeys are also going to start to come into play, where we don't just automatically route the buyer to the next person on the list, inside sales and then AE and then customer success, but we'll personalize it based on what we believe that seller needs. So those dynamic journeys. So that'll be pretty cool. We'll also do a better job of personalizing our training and our development of reps. So ensuring that, our onboarding program has personalized elements, that our ongoing development is very personalized, including, really in-moment coaching. That's very personal to what's going on between the seller and the buyer. So lots coming in this area that's going to really feel good. When you can form a better relationship with the seller, with the buyer, when the seller can do that, it feels good to connect and to be able to be helpful and to do what add value. It'll be pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I think a theme with all of these is that, they apply to how the seller interacts with the buyer, but it also applies to how sales leaders interact with their sellers. And you can increase productivity and efficiencies on both ends there. And we do have a question in the chat. Do you feel buyers within companies would rather get an email or a phone call for being sold to? What about LinkedIn? And I'll set the table for you guys. I mean, with personalization, I think it's all about how they want to be interacted with.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's obviously a mix, right? And I think it's based on the person and how they want to be interacted with. But part of what we recommend in terms of the cadence that's required is mixing up that cadence when you're reaching out to somebody that you don't know and never heard from you. It's mixing up that cadence to see what is their preferred method. Obviously, you'd like to know what their preferred communication method is, but in the absence of that, it's to mix it up and also think about how to add value. I think a lot of reps reach out cold, and it's, hey, take a meeting with me, or the effort is to try to get an outcome right away. And I think what they're missing is that in today's world, especially with all the information that buyers now have, you have to demonstrate that you have value to add to the buyer in their investigation in order to earn the right to get that meeting. So coming at somebody hard to say, I'd like to book a meeting with you at 2:00 next week, when you've done nothing to demonstrate that you're someone actually that is worth talking to, it's increasingly gotten harder and harder with the amount of information that's available now. So I think the best reps in the future, the best sales organizations in the future are realizing they have to invest up front to demonstrate that they had value, add value to that buyer before they ask for anything in return, to give a lot before they get anything. And based on those companies and those sales organizations that can do the best job of that, being helpful and demonstrating that they're offering advice regardless of their own solution as a way to start the conversation, are ultimately going to have a better chance of connecting with those buyers and getting that conversation to start.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Nancy. And that brings us to our fourth P. So we talked a little bit earlier about CEOs and investors continuing to prioritize predictable, repeatable, and scalable revenue. And as that trend continues, what do you believe what will this mean for seller productivity, and will it change from where it is today?
Well, so yes, as we bring in technologies to help us capture information and analyze it and provide us with insights on what the buyer is doing and how they want to engage. And as we use that to be more precise and more personalized, we're obviously going to be more productive. We're going to do the right activities with the right opportunities. So that's going to increase our productivity. But we also see technology automating a lot of mundane tasks. We see B2B buyers increasingly want to self-serve all the way through the sales process and doing trials, just digitally through e-commerce or marketplaces, deciding to purchase that way. So we're going to see a lot of the more mundane tasks that sellers have had to do in the past. Those are going to get automated, and they're going to free up sellers to be able to do some more of the value add. So personalization will come through that as well. And buyers selecting the paths that make the most sense for them, buyers continuing to use digital means to get information, et cetera. So when the rep does interact, it's going to be needs to be a highly value added interaction, and they'll have more tools and information to help them make that more effective. And as a result, their productivity will also increase. So there's just, that's why we think it's a productivity revolution. I mean, it's like a perfect storm coming in to help really drive this productivity.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add to that, Matt, is just in terms of productivity revolution, is we, in research that we did, we sort of likened it using analogy to auto manufacturing, and how the auto manufacturing industry in the last 100 years has had dramatic improvements in productivity through the use of, obviously, technology, through the use of process improvement, through upskilling of workers. But even today, the auto industry in the next 5 years is supposed to see 15 to 24% increase in productivity. And that's where sales really needs to move towards. You cannot have a situation, it is not sustainable to have 30% of your reps making their number, or 20% of the reps making the number. Maybe that would work in the days of certainly in technology, when I started selling on-prem software, and you could sell multi-million-dollar deals, and you could rely on a small set of reps to make your number as a VP of sales. But when you move to an era today and in the future where buyers want to buy on an as-needed basis, or they want to start small before they're willing to put forth a lot of money for a solution, you need a broader set of your reps to actually contribute and be successful in order for you, the VP of sales, to be successful hitting their number. And that's what investors want. They want predictability. That's what the annuity stream of a monthly recurring revenue gives you. But in order to orchestrate that and make that happen as a VP of sales, you need to make sure that you've armed your reps, you've offloaded the mundane activity, you've done a better job of setting their territories to ensure that everybody has equal opportunity to ultimately contribute. So you have 80 or 90% of your reps making the number, not 20% of the reps doing 80% of the business. And that's a very different change for a lot of sales organizations, and it's being driven by the buyer and the way they want to buy, and they want to start small. So this is happening whether VPs of sales like it or not, but that's going to change the requirement for productive organizations.
Great. And then finally, with a few minutes left, our last P, which is profitable. So we all know the entire point of sales is to generate revenue, generate profits. But Nancy, first, how will the term profitable change for sales leaders and their sellers in the future?
So, obviously, if we're more productive, we should be more profitable. So that's one thing. But profitability is going to come up in a couple of different ways. First of all, we've tended to work in silos. Marketing's in their silo. Indirect channels have been in their silo. E-commerce has been in its silo. We saw that in retail. So as a consumer, back in the beginning of online purchasing, if you bought something online, you couldn't return it to the physical store. You had to ship it back. And that's because those two organizations were in silos. Well, the same thing's still true in B2B today. And companies need to bring that together, so that by helping buyers use the channel that is most effective for them, or, putting in channels that are most cost effective for the buyer. So mundane purchases, transactional purchasing being done through e-commerce, for example, will help also boost our profitability. We're also going to see that using the right resources with the buyer, and knowing what right resource through that insight that we have, and being able to be more precise about which resources we need to bring to bear, will help us be more profitable in our use of our resources. And by bringing together the entire revenue engine and seeing what's going on, revenue engine leaders are going to be able to together decide where to invest the next dollar. Because they're going to know that by putting this dollar in, instead of just hiring another sales headcount to drive more revenue, we might say, oh, let's run a campaign because we know that's going to bring in the most value right now. Or we need to bring in more inside sellers because we're getting a lot of inbound leads and we need somebody to help us process them. So being able to really understand the value of another dollar of investment and where it should be placed, that's going to help us to drive better profit.
Sales leaders are going to need to think more like chief operating officers in the future. There's no question. They're going to have to think not just about top line growth and whatever cost it takes to get to that top line growth I'll go for. It's how do I get to that top line growth that's being asked of me, but do it in the most cost efficient way. And for many years, really, sales leaders haven't been accountable for the cost efficiency part. And sales leaders need to think about CAC and LTV and how are you going to acquire and support customers in the most efficient way, given how much lifetime value they generate for you. That's going to be a key requirement in the future. It's table stakes for sales leaders to start thinking that way.
Great. Well, thank you, Phil and Nancy, for taking the time today. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. What we presented today provides a strong foundation as we move into the future of sales. But there was a lot more that went into this, including a research report with data points, quotes from practitioner interviews, and expanded impacts of the 5 Ps and the potential impacts they could have on your business. And that's available to clients on our website at Forrester.com. Non-Forrester clients can learn more about the future of sales in 2 recently published blog posts. First, Welcome to the Future. Have you heard about the future of sales? And second, Moneyball for B2B Sales, the Insights-Driven Sales System. And we just put the links to those in the chat. They should be there soon if they aren't there already. And we also post frequently about our upcoming research and events. So we encourage you to connect with all of us on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, you can post them to us there as well. And we can continue the conversation. So again, thank you all for joining us. We really had fun with this, and hopefully you learned a lot during it.
Thank you. We look forward to connecting and having continuing the dialogue. So see you on LinkedIn.
Thanks.